Good evening. How are you? This is going to be a stand-in talk because the rains continue today, which is good for us. But as I'm near the Potomac, when I've crossed over the Potomac, I could see that the waters are low and that a drought still seems to persist, and we still need more water. And I don't know how much we'll get, but we're getting some now. And I may go out in the rain myself, but my phone would not survive that. The temperature's around 70 degrees, the humidity's around 80, and the wind is supposed to be about 5. But I am not experiencing any of those things right now. I'd like to start with one disturbing story. At 2:28 p.m. today, it was released that there was gunfire that damaged the campaign offices of Kamala Harris. Now, this is one of 18 offices, campaign offices she has in Arizona. But this kind of stuff is just not tolerable. And it's not what we're saying that's causing it. When I say we, I'm talking about Democrats, independents, right-minded Republicans, and who remember the grand old party, and younger ones perhaps who understand what government and politics should be about. So this is a terrible thing that they would do that. And she's due to be in the state this upcoming Friday to campaign for office. So we wish her well, but we have to ever be vigilant of the Trumpians who think that no holds barred is the only way that we campaign in America. There's a story I enjoy involving Judge Chutkan. She's the judge overseeing the federal prosecution for interference by Trump in the election in Washington, D.C. In view of the recent Supreme Court decision talking about immunity for the president, former president, Trump in this case, she said that difficult decision has caused her to believe that it's appropriate that the special counsel Smith, who wants to submit a large brief, 180 pages to be precise, with new evidence that they want to have brought to the attention of the court to analyze that decision by the Supreme Court. So there'll be 30 pages of new exhibits as I understand it. Now, will you and I see it when he files it? We may not immediately because it will be filed under seal, and the court may wait and see what should or shouldn't be made public. But I hope that she'll err on the side of making it public so we can all see this additional evidence. Also, it comes at a time which is a delicate time, if you will, for the campaign, Trump's campaign as well as Kamala Harris's campaign. And another development about if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Nebraska GOP, that's Republican Governor Jim Pillen, won't call a special legislative session, as he's been asked to do so, to challenge how the state may allocate its electoral votes. It is widely believed that this change in how they count votes and how they designate electoral votes, if they accepted this new method, that would favor Trump. So again, it's the game playing in the system rather than the actual support. And then to make matters worse, we're talking again about the Electoral College, which we have so heavily criticized. But we have to understand, we made this deal at the birth of this nation, because otherwise we would not have had a nation. But we've done nothing since to correct it, at least as a constitutional law matter. And some of that's for fear of opening the Constitution to all sorts of other things that would change the very nature of America. So people talk about amendments to the Constitution, but they don't do it. What we have to do is we have to tighten the laws and provisions, I think, and perhaps make more regular how we count electoral votes, how we pay attention to them. Now, we have another favorable story, I think, for Kamala Harris, and I think you'll agree. The question is, are we going to have young voters, and are they going to be helping Kamala? Meaning, will they actually vote? Well, something interesting has happened. It appears that Vice President Harris is attracting votes. I can say my daughter Diana and my stepdaughter Alex are among them. But going beyond my own personal experience, the looking at less than 30-year-olds, they're finding that there are 17 points difference between Harris and Trump, 46% to 29%. But when they look at likely voters, something really dramatic happens, 61% to 30%. Now that is dramatic. That's the kind of vote that if that's delivered, that's a sensational change. We haven't seen anything like that. I think there are going to be a lot of firsts in this campaign. They're all not going to be good, but we're going to have some good news like we do when we review that poll. Now, going international, I think we have a problem, and I don't know that the parties can agree about it. I don't know that the candidates will even talk about it. But it's Zelensky before the United Nations, before the Security Council, saying that he wants to have the forces to go into Russia. He wants to fight there. I am not in favor of supporting that because my study of international law says if what we have done so far is not acts of war, that would be. Our argument so far has been it's a defensive procedure. Now, one person's defense is another person's offense. But to go into the territory of another state, as Russia went into Ukraine, is a step forward, escalating, I think, the situation and opening us up to the question of, since that's an act of war, are now we at war with Russia? There are probably, no doubt, people who believe in chaos theory and enjoy it and would like nothing else to happen. Changing my thoughts a little bit, you know how strongly I feel about the environment. And we look for things like the canary in the cave, if you know what I mean. The indication, for example, in a cave, that if a canary can't survive, then we should be aware of going into the mine. Well, we have an observable and larger demonstration of this off Long Island. 1/4 of the world's right whales are found. And why is that? They're looking for food is the only best explanation that I've heard. That is zooplankton. And years ago, Holly and I went to Antarctica. In fact, it was a deal. I had written a small book about pain in America and how our government makes it worse. And Holly had helped as an editor and so forth. And she said, well, now that you've done that, I want to do something. Because I was single-mindedly devoted to analyzing the situation involving pain medicine. And she said, let's go to Antarctica. And while there, we visited a research center. And we spoke to some of the people. And the krill, like little lobster, you could, if you know what a krill looks like, it's different than that, but it's similar, and it's small. And Holly and I were out on zodiacs, and they'd crawl up onto the zodiac, and that was the food in Antarctica. And there was concern among the scientists that we ran into that there wouldn't be enough food, and that they would be compromised. Now, I'm not saying, and I don't think they know yet, that these whales are off Long Island only for that, because it's a big question mark, and I think it's somewhat, in such a story, still breaking news. Returning to conflict, I think we should be concerned about Israel. Israel seems, well, let me change that. I say Israel. Netanyahu is always changing the game. And so yesterday, he pounded the living daylights out of Lebanon with airstrikes. Now, Lebanon is not in Palestine, it's not in Gaza, it's not in Israel. It is across a nation-state border. And yes, there's been talk about some trading going back and forth. But this was a terrific assault, meaning a terrible assault. 492 people are dead, 1,600 rather are injured. And this area of the world is a very dangerous place. Now, Iran has kept its powder dry, if you will, even though while in Iran, in Tehran, a high-placed official from Gaza was there and was killed. And they've been encouraged to not get inflamed and to not go forward with any action because they were told by us and others that the negotiations for a ceasefire in Gaza between Hamas and Israel was imminent, and it hasn't been. And they're beginning to think that that was just nonsense. And as a result of doing nothing, they've been out of the game and things are happening like Lebanon. This is a good example, Netanyahu is, of a person who has so many conflicts we can't rely on his judgment. That is to say, there are cases pending against him, and he's trying to maintain leadership. He has people in his own nation state in Israel who are resisting his ongoing warlike action because they want the hostages brought home, and that's more important to them than what he's doing. I also think that they feel because he's been so aggressive to date, what are we fighting for except to occupy? And this is a very dangerous thing, well, anywhere, but in that part of the world. We have an imbalance in what is going on. So what is my overview of what we are looking at? We have a number of changes that favor, if you will, good government, good practices, decisions even by GOP members. And I think, again, this is a march in the right direction. Yesterday I talked about the black swan being something surprising and inescapable and unpredictable that all of a sudden changes the game. And I talked about election results as one of them. And in that category, we had, if you will, a black swan, something inescapable and surprised and so forth, when Kamala came forward and all of a sudden took off. And when I say took off, we're talking about energy, we're talking about happy warriors, we're talking about an agenda, we're talking about real issues, and then we're talking about a slam dunk debate performance, and additional things like people coming together and excited and going door knocking and everything else. So the latter is very encouraging for America, who needs it for more than just this presidential election. Because if we're going to sail into a future in which we're going to make a difference going forward, we have to leave behind us the dregs of political society, the haters and the discriminators and the people who don't understand what the idea of America is at its best, are not working for equality, not working for equal justice before law. And so with that in mind, I think that the developments I'm talking about are good. The war abroad, that's not good. What's happening at the Security Council, I don't know where, once it gets into your blood, what do you do? And it's hard to ministrate to a constructive force forward when you see the death of people you care about and the inflammation of the individuals to act and not to sit still. And so there's an awful lot of pain in the world today, certainly in the Middle East, certainly in Ukraine, Russia, Lebanon, Iran. These two areas of the world are very dangerous right now. And Biden has the experience to make a difference, but Netanyahu seems to be driving a knife into any possible deal short of complete extermination and occupation. And I think that it's going to take people from within the state of Israel to say enough is enough. And if we do not have that deal, who could tell what would happen? More domestically, I think that what we're doing, all of us, we the people, as the citizens, is important. I think that certainly the campaign is working hard. Next week we're going to see, I think, get popcorn and drinks for this one. We're going to see the vice presidential debate next week. And so I suppose that we'll see a pretty explosive number of people watching that. I think these events that allow us to judge the movement toward Election Day, and that the right motions made by Kamala and Tim are things that we can count on to make a difference. But we all have to do whatever we can do, however little, however much. Because the larger the victory, first of all, we have to work to get a victory. But if we're doing that, the larger, the better, particularly in the battleground states. We want to give as many paths to 270 electoral votes as we can, so that we never see this group of evil, fascists, again. And I do believe that what does happen in America, and has happened in America, there's these streams just under the earth, and they pop up. The most conservative, the most bigoted, things like that keep coming up. But I would like to emphasize the strain that is most endurable in America, which is most important to fulfill the promise of the nation, is what's happening with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And that we need to embrace in any way that we can. Otherwise, we have to remain patient and not let the devils get us so upset. So maybe tomorrow there won't be rain. I'll be out. I'll be able to spin in front of my cathedral of trees, but for now, not so. I may go out in the rain myself because I'm washable and I can handle the rain, but my phone can't. So I look forward to talking to you and perhaps on the trail tomorrow. All the best. Bye-bye.